Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Merrill Kane with the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix, presented by Lear, Communications Director here with the Grand Prix. Very excited to welcome all of you to our Zoom media deal today. We are looking forward to having a really spirited discussion about the Grand Prix. And, we are just 73 days away from bringing racing, world-class racing, back to Belle Isle, the final race weekend that we're going to celebrate on Belle Isle with the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix, presented by Lear. We take the green flag on Belle Isle on Friday, June 3rd. The event runs from Friday, June 3rd through June 5th. We're really excited about 3 days of racing here in the Motor City. Again, the final event on Belle Isle before we return the Grand Prix to its original home in downtown Detroit in 2023. And boy, there's some really interesting activities that we're going to share with you for that first day at the Grand Prix on Friday, June 3rd. But before we do that, we've got a great panel of guests that are going to join us here today and talk a little bit about opportunities in racing. But before we do that, we wanted to give a little preview for those who haven't seen the Grand Prix, had a chance to experience it, or even if you have in the past and you're getting your engines revved for June 3rd through the 5th, we wanted to make sure we take that turbo a little bit higher and take a look about what it's going to look like in just a few weeks on Belle Isle. So let's take a look at the 2022 Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix, presented by Lear.
Detroit Grand Prix, the place to be.
The Detroit Grand Prix brings tens of millions to our region every year, and General Motors and Chevrolet are proud to support this world-class event right here in the Motor City.
Lear is proud to once again be the presenting sponsor of the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix. Race weekend is a great way to show off the Motor City to fans around the world.
Start your engines.
There you go. 73 days. We're going to be bringing racing back to the Motor City on the streets of Belle Isle for one last time, again, before the event returns to downtown Detroit, its original home, for the first time since 1991. We'll be back there in the summer of 2023. We're very excited to celebrate the final year on Belle Isle, and we're really looking forward to today's discussion with a lot of students from around Southeast Michigan, and we'll get to that in just a second. But first, I want to bring in our panel. And earlier today, we made the announcement that Comerica Bank is back for their 9th year of sponsoring Free Prix Day, which is a really exciting day for all of us. It's really the first day of the Grand Prix. So on Friday, June 3rd, everyone is invited to come to Belle Isle and experience all the excitement of race weekend, all the race teams, all the racing series that will be competing in Detroit are going to be on the track that day. But it's a tradition that started back in 1982 with the very first Detroit Grand Prix on the streets of Detroit. Started then for Free Prix Day, and we've been able to carry it on every year that there's been a Grand Prix. We've been able to offer up Free Prix Day where everyone in the community can come down to Belle Isle or back then in the streets of Detroit to experience everything that's going on with the Grand Prix. So we're excited to continue that, and I'm happy that Comerica Bank is back as the sponsor of Free Prix Day. So make sure you make your plans, all you students out there watching in, to be there with us on Belle Isle on Friday, June 3rd to experience the Grand Prix. And we've got a very distinguished panel that's joining us today to talk a little bit about not only Comerica Bank Free Prix Day, but all the exciting things that are going to be happening between now and then and during race weekend on Belle Isle. So first off, I'm going to welcome in Megan Crespi. Megan is the Executive Vice President for Technology and Operations for Comerica Bank. Megan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We also want to welcome in a driver that has won here in the Motor City before. We took the checkered flag and won the 2017 Trans Am Series race on Belle Isle. He's in a new venture this year, competing for the Force Indy Lights team. Ernie Francis Jr. joins us on the line all the way from Florida. So Ernie, thank you very much for being a part of today's engagement with the students. There he is. Yes. Ernie, thanks for joining us. We also have Ernie's boss on the line here, who is the team principal for Force Indy. He's also the founder of NXG, which stands for Next Generation Racers, Youth Motorsports Program, and Life Skills Development Initiative. We have Reid, who is joining us here today from Indianapolis. So Rod, thank you for being part of our panel today and looking forward to the discussion around NXG as well as Force Indy. Thank you for being part of it today.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
We're also going to welcome in from General Motors. She manages the sports car programs, Cadillac and Corvette sports car programs for GM. Laura Klauser joins us, who has been part of this engagement in years past for around Comerica Bank Free Prix Day. So Laura, after a very eventful weekend, we'll get to that in a second, that was very successful for the General Motors side. Thank you for being a part of our panel today.
Thank you for having me.
And we also welcome in our president of the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix presented by Lear, Michael Montri. Joining us today. Michael, thank you for being a part of our program and getting the opportunity to engage with some of the students today. There he is.
Thanks, Merrill.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Megan, we'll start with you. First off, you know, Comerica is celebrating its 9th year now as the sponsor of Free Prix Day, and we love it. We love the relationship. We know the community is very important to Comerica Bank, and you prove it every year at the Grand Prix. Why is the tradition of keeping Free Prix Day alive in the Motor City, where everyone gets a chance to experience all that goes on at the Grand Prix? Why is that an important thing to Comerica Bank?
Yeah, I mean, to us, Comerica Free Prix Day is really a community celebration. As a lifelong Michigander, I know firsthand what a great Detroit tradition the Grand Prix is, and we at Comerica want as many people as possible to be able to experience this event. It's great to be out there seeing fans, seeing families enjoy the Grand Prix that perhaps might not otherwise be able to. So we want to spotlight the sport of auto racing, and we want to do that at one of the most scenic racing venues at Belle Isle. But what we appreciate the most about our partnership is really the ability to bring the behind the scenes work to life through our student engagements, the virtual ones, those that are in person. It really allows us to connect with young people, show them how auto racing is really not much different than most of the popular team sports, class projects, business collaborations. It takes everyone working together to really achieve the team's goals. Comerica's really enjoyed that opportunity to provide the unique experience to see the behind the scenes of the racing and of the event. And for me, as somebody in the technology field, I might feel pretty similar to many of you. It's pretty fascinating to see how other professionals apply engineering, math, technology, and even art to this industry. And they do it in a high pressure and competitive environment. I think we can all learn from that.
It's a great point. It really is. It doesn't get any more high pressure than world-class auto racing and under the spotlight of national, international broadcasts and all that's going on like that. But as you look back at it and you know, over the past 8 years, and it's going to be 9 this year, what are some of the things that you look to and think back on, wow, that was a really cool experience that was brought about by Comerica Bank Free Prix Day and welcoming everybody to Belle Isle to experience what goes on at the Grand Prix?
Yeah, I mean, you saw some of it in the video, and that video does nothing more than make people excited about the summer that we have to come and the excitement that we have on Belle Isle. The fact that you saw so many families out there, that you were able to see kids, that you were able to see people really enjoying the sport, sometimes for the first time, and being able to really understand how science comes together with these fun and entertaining, events that we put on here in the city of Detroit.
That's awesome. So we know that we're going to be joined by a number of students here today. We've already got a lot who have logged in. I think some are still trying to get online here, but we will have some questions from them here coming up. And by the way, if you are on the line and you are one of the schools that's joining us or one of the community partners that's joining us, we ask you there, it's in there in the chat, but if you could please make sure that you either have your teacher or one of the students kind of log on and tell us who and where you're from, so we make sure that we can recognize you and we know everyone that we're reaching here today. We'd appreciate it, so we can have that in the chat. But as we talk about that, Megan, obviously you're the head of technology operations for Comerica. You deal very closely with that on a day-to-day basis. What are some of the things that you would recommend, some of the life skills and some of the things that you'd recommend students kind of study and pay attention to as they not only go through their career path, but as they think about racing and think about the things that go into racing? What are some of the things you recommend that they would pay attention to?
Yeah, great question. My advice is to be curious. Ask lots of questions. People love answering questions and explaining their own expertise to others. That enables you to be able to understand things well. You can get a better sense of what it is you're seeing. And don't fear a stupid question, because so often other people might have the same one in their mind, but if they're also fearful of asking, no one gets the benefit of the answer. So be out there, be curious, ask questions. People love to share their expertise and information. The other thing I'd say is be confident that as you make decisions and as you're thinking about which classes to take, what to do after high school, which job to choose, that you should operate based on the information you know, the questions you've asked, what you think is right for you, and know that you can always change your mind. There are very few doors in life that only go one way. So as you decide what you're going to do, what you're going to study, what job you're going to take, try it, live with it, learn about it. And if it doesn't serve you well, you can always walk back out the door and try something else. So from my perspective, really blending that curiosity with, at the same time, really knowing that you've got choices and options, as long as you stay curious, is the key.
Awesome. Great advice. I mean, to really follow no matter what you're doing, but certainly students, something for you to pay attention to. And we appreciate all your support, Megan. Really appreciate Comerica Bank, again, being our partners to bring this event to the community, to everyone that wants to try to experience it again. Comerica Bank Free Prix Day back on Friday, June 3rd, where everyone can experience the Grand Prix for free. So thank you again. I'm sure we'll have some questions for you for the students coming up, but I want to bring in Laura Klauser. Laura Klauser oversees the sports car programs for General Motors, primarily Cadillac and Corvettes. And first off, congratulations, Laura. It was a terrific weekend for General Motors. For students who don't follow racing that closely, there's a little event they call the 12 Hours of Sebring. Very, very historic sports car event. They literally race for 12 hours on a very bumpy and challenging course in Sebring, Florida. It's always a brutal and very tough challenge for all the drivers and teams. And happy to report that General Motors was very successful over the weekend on Saturday at 12 Hours of Sebring. The Cadillac race teams swept the podium, which means that they've got first, second, and third place. They won it and got all the other spots on the podium as well. And Corvette Racing was also victorious in their class. So, Laura, first off, congratulations on a great weekend in Sebring.
Thank you. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's a hard race. The track is the hardest one we go to in terms of what it does to the vehicle and what it does to the drivers. So being able to be successful there is something we hang very proudly on our wall.
Let's give the students a little bit of a taste of what it was like there on Saturday. We've kind of edited the video a little bit here because it's 12 hours. We can't really show all 12 hours, but we'll show a few of the highlights here. So if we can, Rob, let's cue that up and take a look back at this weekend's 12 Hours of Sebring.
Welcome everyone to the 70th running of the Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring, a special 7-decade celebration all week long here in Central Florida. The 70th running is about to go, and yes, they're on it. Cadillac's heading toward turn 1. The 70th is underway.
Sebastian Bourdais from the pole there in the 0-1 machine. Nice clean start. Pippo Durrani trying to slide in there. Ricky Taylor, nice move down to the inside with the 10 machine. Gets around Alex Lynn. Big brave move around the outside.
Coming out of the final corner, Earl Bamber is going to win the Sebring 12 Hours for Chip Ganassi.
They're the teammates, Neil Johnny and Alex Lynn celebrate. Corvette Racing, here he comes. Garcia looking for his 4th win here at Sebring.
He's now down the Ullman Straight, coming to turn 17, rounding for the last time.
Bordelotти some 5 seconds back in the Lamborghini. Gounon will round out the podium with Tielet's issues late in the going.
Disappointment at Daytona. Corvette wins at Sebring.
Wow, that is making a statement right there.
I know it's got to be very satisfying, Laura, to see all those highlights. I don't know if you had a chance to see the broadcast because you were down there living it, but again, congratulations. That's a great accomplishment for everyone at General Motors, and I know how hard you work and everyone on your team works to bring that together. So again, great job.
Thank you.
So as you think about that, and some of the students seeing it probably are thinking that's a pretty cool job to have, I would think, right? Getting a chance to work on race cars or drive race cars and to be a part of an exhilarating sport like this. So as we got some, career advice for the students there from Megan, as someone who works very closely with all the race teams under the General Motors brand, what kind of, recommendations and advice can you give to kids, particularly ones that might be looking for an opportunity to get a career in motorsports and experience some of the things that you've been able to experience?
I'd say networking is huge. And I know we use the word networking a lot, and I think it can be very confusing because there's some very many different ways that you can go about networking. But for networking, in my opinion, is just building up who you know in the sport. And that, you shouldn't limit yourself to just the top names or, the team principals, but, meeting everyone who's on the team, understanding mechanics that are in the program, different drivers across all the different series, meeting and talking to the different engineers through various programs. That's key because in that way you start to get to know people and you can start to learn and understand what their jobs are to maybe think, okay, what would I want to target? Where do I think I could fit into racing the best? Because there's so many different things you can do in a racing program. I'm on the engineering side along with the team management's part of things. But, if math and science isn't your thing, there's a ton of jobs in PR and, media. There's jobs for hospitality, making sure that everyone's being fed at the event. There's so many different things you can do. So if racing is your passion, don't let what you think is going to be your degree decide whether or not you can join the sport. There's probably a place for you. So, getting to know everyone who's there and understanding and building that awareness so that you can hear about different opportunities that might come up, whether those are, an opportunity to just be with a team during a race and experience it, or it's an opportunity to help a team or to, even find a job on a team or any other entity that's in the racing. That's how you can hear about those things if you're embedded into the paddock. We are a big family, especially on the IMSA side. Almost everyone knows each other and we're up in each other's business a lot usually. So, when we know of one team that's looking for somebody or one group, it usually word spreads. So the more people that you get to know and be a part of, the better off you are at finding out of future opportunities.
Great advice. I mean, networking is really valuable for at all levels of business, right? No matter what you are looking to do, making sure that you know the right people and broaden your scope to make sure that you have a lot of contacts in your Rolodex. It's very important across the board. So great advice there. And I think for the students, anyone who is interested in racing, if this looks exciting to you, I think that first contact can come through the Grand Prix, right? Comerica Bank Free Prix Day, Friday. Everybody can come in for free on June 3rd. And that's where the contacts start if you really want to try and, take this to the next level and get an opportunity in racing. I think, Laura, you can probably back this up. Anyone who works within the sport is always excited to talk to somebody who is enthused about it and thinks about a career in it. And I think would all do whatever they can to try to help you get a foot in the door if that's something that you're interested in. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the opportunities. And I think one thing that's no, go ahead.
Oh, I just said I was agreeing with you.
One of the things I was going to mention was that, probably a lot of people don't know, but the Cadillac and Corvette racing programs are actually headquartered right here in Michigan, out of Pratt & Miller, which is in New Hudson. So we have world-class race teams that are right here kind of in our own backyard. Laura, can you talk a little bit? I know you've worked very closely with those teams there at Pratt Miller and in New Hudson. Just for briefly describe what that place is like, what a professional race shop at a top level program is like how many people work there, what are some of the roles that they go through, and what are the opportunities that are there for students and people that want to get involved?
Well, you're in a professional organization because when you walk in the door, the first thing you're going to see is a pile of trophies along an old race car that is a decoration in the corner of the lobby. And, I think Pratt Miller has been very successful with us in Corvette for over 20 years, which is great. So, you're in the right place. You see all of the evidence of being able to win, which is exciting. And really what goes on in there is, again, a whole group of different types of people that are needed. The team that you see at the racetrack is built up of mechanics, engineers, drivers, and program management who also are handling logistics, which I think a lot of people don't realize how much of logistical work goes into making sure that we can move the race car and the team around, in the case of Corvette now, all over the world. So there's a lot of effort that needs to be put there and finding hotel rooms, et cetera. And then also you have the support staff at the team that's helping, that might not travel with the team to the races, but is making sure that we are working on race car design. So we have engineers that stay back that are doing that type of work while everyone is at the track. You've got the people that are, making sure that the team is operating and functioning, HR and, all of those groups, as well as others that are working on manufacturing. So they have a lot of fabricators that know how to work with carbon fiber, that run their machines, that build all of the metal parts, that assemble the vehicle, that weld the cage into the car, all of those things. So there's a mighty group of people behind. And I mean, I'm not entirely sure what the number is in total, but I can safely guess that it's well over 100 people that are supporting the team, whether they are on the traveling roadshow or they're at home building and just managing the activities back at home base.
It takes a village, right? It's quite an effort when you see the Cadillac and the Corvette teams come out to the track. It's always impressive to me to see the amount of people, not only that, but just the professionalism that the teams exhibit throughout the course of the weekend. You can tell, that they're a top level team, and it's right here in our own backyard, which is great. And we appreciate all the success that you've been able to bring to the table. To reset a little bit, so for the Detroit Grand Prix, which again happens June 3rd through the 5th, there are actually 4 racing series that compete at the Grand Prix. There is the NTT INDYCAR Series, which is the open wheel race cars that probably a lot of people are familiar with. They race at the Indianapolis 500 the weekend before they come to Detroit. So that's the Indy cars. There's the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, which is the series where Laura's GM teams race in Cadillac and Corvette. And that was what you saw there with the 12 hours of Sebring, I should say. That is IMSA. Then we also have what is called the Cooper Tires Indy Lights Series, Indy Lights presented by Cooper Tires. Our guest that's coming up next year, Ernie Francis Jr., drives an Indy Lights for the Force Indy team, which competes in Indy Lights this year. And then we also have a brand new series that we're welcoming, the Masters Endurance USA series, which features some historic sports cars, classic sports cars that have competed over the years, and we're excited to welcome them to Belle Isle. So a lot of different racing, series, which is going to create a really exciting weekend. And again, more opportunities to work within the sport of racing if that's something that students are interested in. So Laura, the final question I wanted to ask you about is obviously you've been very successful, working within the racing field. It's a tough field, for females. Obviously, it's a male-dominated sport. But you obviously have worked your way to the top and have distinguished yourself. What advice would you give for young women who might be wanting to get into motorsports?
Don't ever let anybody tell you can't do what you want to do. Just chase your dreams. I have the, luckiness of being a little ignorant sometimes to paying attention to maybe when I shouldn't have been doing something because that was not what a woman is supposed to be doing. But it's if you want to do something, you set your mind to it and you let everyone around you know that you're willing to work so hard to get what you want, you will be respected. It might take a little bit longer for some people than others, just depending on what their unconscious biases are and things like that. But as you prove you're willing to be there, to show up, to give it your all, people see that, they notice it, and they will, respect and follow. And I see that amongst all my team, regardless of, which gender, which color, any of those things. The people that show up and are willing to be there are the ones that, everyone will lean on and look to, and it just creates a better team overall.
Thank you, Laura. We appreciate that and appreciate your leadership and the way that you've been able to kind of embrace this program and be a part of it around Comerica Bank Free Prix Day. Always a shining example. We know that you'll be there to support on race weekend as well and create some good experiences for the students that are able to come out and join us on Belle Isle that weekend. So I know we'll have some questions for you coming up here as well, but we want to get to Ernie Francis Jr. Ernie is a victor here in Detroit. He won in 2017 the Trans Am Series race on Belle Isle. And boy, this guy has won pretty much everywhere he's gone. The winningest driver in the history of the Trans Am Series, which is saying a lot. That series goes back a long ways. And Ernie was very successful in Trans Am, 7-time champion in the Trans Am Series before he decided to kind of make a leap and take a risk and try something new this year, transitioning to those closed cockpit kind of cars in Trans Am and moving over to open wheel racing. Competing in the Indy Lights Series this year. And we look back and wanted to make sure that we share with you what it looked like when the announcement came that Ernie was joining Indy Lights back in a snowy Indianapolis Motor Speedway in January. So let's take a quick look.
I mean, this is probably one of the biggest steps that I've taken in my career. This is just an incredible opportunity for me. If you told me a year ago that I'd be racing in the Indy Lights Series, I would have never believed you.
It's so important to us to continue this journey that we started about a year ago. And also, my goal and the goal of the team is to really develop talent that's from the communities, Black and brown communities. And that's something that we've done from the very beginning, trying to bridge that. And today, we're here to announce moving up the ladder. And we started last year with USF 2000, and we were really excited about doing that. I think we were quite successful. I feel really great that the team put together what we consider a top 10 winning effort. And of course, we had a win in August last year with our driver then, Miles Rowe, who is gone on to continue in USF 2000 actually this year, and was just glad to be able to develop him. And then today, to announce us moving into Indy Lights with Ernie Francis Jr. is so exciting, especially to maintain our legacy.
A little abrupt ending there to the video, but Ernie, that had to be an exciting day for you, and I know it's been exciting in a whirlwind tour since you kind of came on board with Force Indy. We'll hear from Reid, who you also saw featured there in the video as the team principal for Force Indy. But it's a program that's revolutionary, really, being able to form a team and a winning team that has been able to sustain itself and really distinguish itself last year in USF 2000 competition, and then moving up to Indy Lights this year. A team primarily made up of African-American people who manage the team and work within the team from every level. All the way up, minority-led team that has really been a shining example for what's going on in IndyCar and trying to take the sport forward and creating more opportunities for diversity and inclusion within the sport. So Ernie, having a chance to be a part of that and making this leap, I guess first off, why was this the right time for you to make this transition in your career? Young driver, still 24 years old, an opportunity to really distinguish yourself and try to become an IndyCar driver. How tough has that challenge been?
I think every driver in the United States has dreams of wanting to be able to race in the Indy 500, wants to be able to compete out there in what is the great American race. I'd love to go and do that. And this opportunity was just so incredible, and it was something that I just had to jump on board and do. I remember back when I was 15 years old racing at the St. Pete Grand Prix and World Challenge, and I'm watching the IndyCar drivers out there with my mom, and I'm telling her how I want to be just like Elio Castroneves and some of those guys racing for those factory teams out there. And to be here at the stepping stone to the IndyCar series is just such a incredible opportunity. I'm just so excited to get out there and continue on with the season now.
So you got one race in, made your debut in Indy Lights at St. Petersburg, the same place that you said that you were looking to try to fulfill your dreams just a few years ago. Finished 7th in your debut race, and really this season I think is probably about getting acclimated to this transition and learning as much as you can as you continue this development in your career. And I know it may not sound like a big leap for students out there watching, but it's a huge transition going from one style of racing to another. And learning that discipline. And you've got some great coaches, including Coach Reid, who's on with us today to kind of help you through that. But what's been the most challenging part for you? What's been the toughest thing as you've made this change?
Yeah, it's a very difficult transition to make going from sports cars to open wheel racing. There's such a higher level of downforce on the open wheel race cars you have to deal with, as well as the open wheel cars. They don't have power steering. They don't have ABS. And your wheels are exposed. So you got to be a lot more careful and precise with where you're putting the car on track. For me, the biggest challenge that I've had to overcome was understanding the downforce level and how the car will react to that. My Trans Am cars, it relies on a lot of mechanical grip, not as much on the aero side for downforce. These cars, it's all about the aero. The faster you go, the more grip the car has. So being able to understand that, the faster I go around some of these turns, the car is going to have more downforce. It's going to stick to the track better. It's taken a little bit of time to understand that. It's crazy thinking back that a year ago, actually this week was my first ever time driving an open wheel car in a FR America's F3 car. So now to be racing in the Indy Lights series is a big transition, but I'm super excited with it. And our goals with this year is just to constant improvement. If we can get better every race and get towards the front of the field by the end of the year, then I think it'd be a pretty successful season.
So as you look a little forward in your season, next race is coming up in May at Barber Motorsports Park, but you'll be here in Detroit in June, June 3rd through the 5th. Indy Lights will be competing here with a doubleheader, which will be challenging on the Detroit Belle Isle Street Circuit. As someone who's won here before, admittedly in Trans Am, it'll be a little bit different for you on Indy Lights, but this track and this event brings its own unique set of challenges. What do you think it's going to be like competing in Indy Lights here in the streets of the Motor City on Belle Isle?
Yeah, first of all, I love racing at Belle Isle. It's one of my favorite tracks that I've driven on, especially in the Trans Am cars. It's just so much fun to rip around that place. In these Indy Lights cars, it's going to be a big challenge. The course is very bumpy. It's pretty rough out there. And in the cars that I'm used to, they soak it up pretty well. You don't really feel it too bad. But in these cars, your butt's pretty much riding right on the floor. So, you're going to be feeling it around the track. It's going to be a lot more bumps to deal with. And then, like I said, with the wheels being exposed, you got to be really careful with all the walls around there. But I think St. Pete was a good experience for me to get used to an open wheel car on a street circuit. So I think Belle Isle is going to be awesome. I can't wait to get out there. And, being a double header, it's great because, you have that first race to learn off of and improve for the second one.
That's awesome. We're looking forward to seeing you here. I know that you loved it when you were here last time, so hopefully you have continued good luck on Belle Isle. Ernie, obviously you talk about the opportunity with Force Indy, a groundbreaking team and doing great things for opening doors in motorsports. As a person of color, how important is it to you to kind of set that example for students, for kids who are looking to try and make sure that they can fulfill their dreams like you have and get a place in motorsports and really to a place where you're someone who can set an example for kids moving forward?
No, it's incredibly important for me. It's incredibly important for the program with NXG and Force Indy and everything that Reid does. It's super important for us to try to promote that and to show these kids that, you can look like me and be a race car driver. You can work on a race team. There's so much that goes into it. And when, fans come around and they see our paddock and they see me in the racing suit by the car and they see all of our mechanics, Derek and Stu, and they see Rod there and everybody looks like them, it really makes them more welcome to come in and they want to talk to us and learn more about the program and more about what we do. And that's all we're trying to do at the end of the day. We want to make it more inclusive for everybody and have them see that, this is a field, an industry that they can be a part of, no matter what it is, if it's racing or running the team or any part of the program.
It's great advice. You're someone who I think you knew pretty early on that you wanted a career in racing. I've seen some videos of you as a young kid, knowing that this is the career path that you wanted to take. But as you talk to students and get an opportunity to engage with classrooms and community groups like what we have here today, what's some of the advice that you give kids that are looking for a career in motorsports and maybe even not in motorsports, but just about they're choosing their life path and what they want to chase their dreams?
One of the first things is just not giving up with it. I've wanted to be a race car driver since I was 4 years old. I started racing cars when I was 13. And from 13 until I was 23, I've been racing for my father's team and, working on the cars at night, working on the cars at the track, driving the truck to the racetrack, doing everything I had to do to make sure I made it on the track to be able to race. That was 10 long years of putting in a lot of work to make it around the track. And now to be, with this program here, racing for Force Indy and the Indy Lights program, it's just been an incredible journey. And I think it just shows that, you can achieve what you want. You just can't give up on your dreams there. And that's what I've been trying to do, the past 10 years of my racing career. Another thing that, like Laura said perfectly, is the connections that you make. That's super important in this business. Just make it out to the racetrack. You don't have to meet team principals, like she was saying. You don't have to meet the head guys, anybody that you can meet that you can talk to. And from a firsthand experience, if you're enthusiastic about it, we'd love to talk to you. It's awesome when fans are excited about what we enjoy and what we're doing out there, because it shows that they're really engaged in what we're doing. So, if you're enthusiastic and you want to come talk to a driver, you see a mechanic there, you want to ask them a few questions, feel free to do it. It's a great way to start making those connections and just, being around the racing industry.
Ernie, you're an inspiration, and you've had a great career thus far, and we know that this is really just the beginning for you. So we wish you all the best in luck. And open wheel racing, we'll be rooting for you here in Indy Lights as you compete twice at the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix presented by Lear. I know we're going to have some questions for you coming up from the students as well, but we want to transition over to Reid. Rod really wears a couple of different hats. He is the team principal for Force Indy, and really leads that effort and Ernie's team as well. And we'll talk to him about that in a second. But we're also very excited to have Rod talk a little bit about NXG. NXG Youth Motorsports is a program that has run in Indianapolis for more than 15 years now, and really helped develop hundreds of students and expose them to motorsports and life skills, through racing, through karting, and learning a lot about life through that lens. We were fortunate enough through support from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan to expand NXG to a pilot program that launched in Detroit in 2021. Very successful with a group of students that went through 2 classes here in the Motor City. We're excited that NXG is going to take the next step and grow even further and broaden its scope here in Detroit in 2022. And we're excited to have that happen as well. But Rod, as someone who's worked with students, young students, especially ones that may not have a lot of experience in motorsports, but this is really their introduction to racing, what are some of the things that you notice as you get a chance to work with some of these students, and what advice can you give them as you go through not only NXG, but just getting an introduction to racing and developing a passion for the sport?
Well, Merle, the one key thing I think we see when we start working with young people is kind of it starts from deer in the headlights, where I don't really understand what this racing is all about. It's not like stick and ball sports where I can play basketball or I can go down to the corner or even in my backyard and play. With racing and motorsports, you have to go to a track or a purpose-built facility. So we get a lot of deer in the headlights. And then once we really express what this sport is all about, then we start to see the excitement. And that's the thing that that helps us continue what we do. But it's so important, this word exposure and access. Those are 2 key things that we try to talk about in our program. There is a major cultural divide because we focus on kids in the urban community, which means we're dealing with a lot of Black and brown kids, and both girls and boys. And usually there's this sense that I don't understand and I don't know how I get connected to this sport. It's a little foreign. I like cars. I like things that go fast. A lot of the video games we see young people do. But it's really different to do it yourself. So we've provided a program, as you mentioned, where we use life skills, STEM education, and we also try to develop their interest in careers in motorsports by taking go-karts and getting those kids in a go-kart, showing them how racing happens and getting to teach them the sport, the play, if you will. And then we see that a lot of folks are very interested in continuing and wanting to learn more. Seems like we got a little lag there, Merle. I don't know if we've locked up or what have you.
I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me now?
There you go.
You got me back? So thanks, Coach. Appreciate that. Yeah, sorry, a little slow on the connection here. One of the questions I was going to ask you was, as you look back on your experience, the expansion to NXG to come to Detroit last year, 2 sessions that you had with students in the spring and in the fall, right before the Grand Prix last spring, and then in September here. What are some of the lessons you learned and you took away from getting a chance to work with a new group of students here in the Motor City? Really haven't been exposed much to motorsports, but you really did a great job working with them over the course of a couple of days.
Well, I can tell you the first thing that was really surprising was that there's such a hunger and an appetite for wanting to learn more about motorsports in Motor City in Detroit, which was very different than Indianapolis, believe it or not. We're a huge racing city, but for some reason, our kids are perhaps we're a little empathetic, just kind of take a back seat since there's so much activity going on around racing. So we're sort of a little just empathetic about it. But for Detroit, those kids came. I was surprised that we start very early in the morning, usually about 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And we had young people out there at 7:15 waiting for us to start class. So there's a lot of enthusiasm. The other thing, and I want to applaud these the teachers, the mentors, and educators and students that are part of this webinar, because I see all the names that go down, everything from STEM programs to chemistry labs and other kinds of engineering programs. It seems to me that there's just this excitement about wanting to learn, wanting to understand, and wanting to grow in the industry that we're all part of. And certainly, I think we've all done a good job of talking about STEM careers. And I know Megan mentioned it, Laura mentioned it, that those connections, science, technology, engineering, math, and art are all there. And it's all to be had in this industry. Our biggest challenge is to give these young people an opportunity to work in it. And so that's what we start with NXG, Youth Motorsports, is to give those young people an opportunity to do that through an educational and instructional environment where they actually start to drive and learn what it's like to drive, but also learn all the other aspects of motorsports. So I just found that the Detroit kids are very excited about wanting to stay a part of this industry.
As we look back at 2021 and some of the engagements that we had, first event was held on Belle Isle. Second event that we had for NXG was held actually over at Huntington Place with a great view of the city. And we were fortunate to get some great scenes of the students in action and coach in action as they gave some instruction to the classroom. So let's take a quick look back at NXG in Detroit in 2021. great experiences there with NXG in 2021, and we're excited to bring that back here in 2022. So hopefully you guys can hear me again. I'm sorry, I apologize for the connection here. I'm gonna try to switch gears and go to a different connection that's hopefully a little bit more reliable. But in the meantime, while I ask that question, Coach, for 2022, when you look at NXG, again, coming back here to Detroit and expanding this program, how do kids get involved? And for the students who are watching, how would they get involved if they're interested in becoming part of this program?
Well, it's very, very simple. The first and the simplest thing is to go to our website. That's nxgyouth.org. And we currently have over 100 kids who have signed up to take our classes. And our classes are pretty basic. There's no prerequisite required for you to take our class. And I would say organizations like Girls STEM and others have all been a part of the program. It's just simply giving us a call or checking out our website and inquiring. The other thing is to ask your advisors and your instructors in these different organizations to reach out to us. We'll get right back to you. We have a community engagement person, Michael Smith, who's always there and always available. And we're going to be back there at least 4 or 5 times this year with students in Detroit. So yeah, just send us a note via our website and we'd be more than happy to engage some of these students.
You got me back, guys?
Yeah.
There we go. Switching gears, a little out of breath. Coach, as we pick up the discussion, one of the things we wanted to ask you about, obviously, is not only was it an exciting year last year for the expansion of NXG in Detroit, but beyond that, got the opportunity to start the Force Indy team. Very exciting opportunity. Again, groundbreaking in the way that this program has really kind of changed the face of motorsports, and we're all happy about that and looking forward to continuing to see where it goes. But as you look back on your first year with NXG, competing in one of the feeder series that lead on the way up to IndyCar, earned a victory. There's been some highlights. I'm sure there's been some challenges along the way, but look back at your first year with Force Indy and what lessons you learned, you and the team, that you can take forward into this season.
Well, first of all, Merle, I have to really give a shout out to Penske Entertainment and you guys, Michael Montri and others who have been extremely supportive of what we started with NXG and then the outgrowth to become Force Indy. And I mention it that way because Force Indy was started as this with a goal of taking some of the same young people that we had in our program, which we started off hiring 2 of them that were NXG students at 11 and 12 years old are now on our crew as mechanics and as crew chief, et cetera. And it's amazing to have that opportunity to give young people a shot at the higher levels of motorsports. So when we got started, we thought we would just get in something that we felt was very easy, or at least easier to digest in terms of a race car and a series. And so we started in USF 2000, and the learning curve was pretty steep, but we felt we're very, very pleased and proud to have gotten a win in our first season, as you mentioned. But the whole notion of Force Indy was to get to the highest levels of racing. So that transition to the Indy Lights, the Cooper Indy Lights series, and getting involved with more professional and higher level folks was always a part of our program. So when we first got our car and the idea that we were going to be on that stage, as Ernie mentioned, right under IndyCar, it was a little bit unnerving, and we weren't sure how we were going to step up to the plate. But, you know, one of the first things we did was to hire a successful driver like Ernie to help lead our team. And we thought if we can put together a car and get it, you know, get his under his legs, then we would be in good shape. And we've started that. The challenges have been trying to get our equipment because of some supply chain issues, but we're growing in that aspect, and we're constantly learning. And the same with Ernie. I mean, we're coming together. This is not it's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's certainly something that we're up to the challenge for.
Coach, when you look ahead to the future, continued growth this year, bringing Ernie within the team, getting used to Indy Lights and all that goes along with that new challenge. But what's the opportunities that you see that lie ahead for Force Indy and the goal for the program as you continue to build it?
Well, our goal is to win races. So that, you know, I always start with that because I don't think there's a racing organization out there that wants to, you know, come in second. You know, we want to come in first. That's a tough thing to do. I'm sure Laura will tell you that. But for us, right up there with that goal of winning is being able to bring people of color into the sport. And so my goal every day, I'm looking to see, is there another person, young man, young woman that might have an interest in marketing, might have an interest in maybe promotion, you know, because we always think of, and we talk about the STEM education, and that's very, very important, but engineers, mechanics, other technicians, there's always that look there. But especially when I talk to some of the young ladies, they say, well, you know, I'm not a mechanic. I'm not interested in maybe the mechanical side. And I said, well, what are you interested in? And I had one young lady says, well, I'm really interested in the medical field. I said, do you realize how much we need folks who in healthcare and the medical industry in motorsports? We can't hold an event without several of you. So whether that's being first responders, you know, if there's an incident, someone right on the track, at the first aid centers, et cetera. So I said, don't negate motorsports just because you have an interest in a field that you don't think is typically involved in motorsports. So our goal is to help like these young folks that are on this webinar see that there are many, many opportunities. It's not going to be easy. And I say that because this is a very specialized field. And if you study mechanical engineering, you really have to focus on racing and vehicle dynamics, if you, for example, if that's something that you want to go into. But I'll kind of echo what I think many of you have mentioned, and that is there's the connections and the networking. But I really think that access is extremely important. And I mentioned it earlier, and that is to have, when you talk to folks who are in the motorsports industry or even on the outside of it, talk about what your interests might be and say, how can I get there? And Merle, this is one of, I think, the beautiful thing about the Comerica Free Day is that starts access. You know, you're going to be there. You're going to be in the pits. And I will offer, you know, Ernie may shoot me later about this, but I would say, come by and see us. You know, I mean, I know he's going to be a busy man. So I would say that if you come by, don't be upset with him if he's got his head on in the helmet and trying to do well on the track. But when we have time, we would definitely like to talk to you, give you any kind of ideas. I would say a combination of maybe advice and recommendations about how you can get in this industry. There are young people that ask me every day, what does it take to be a race car driver? And I'll tell them, well, first of all, probably a lot of money and a strong interest in what you do. A lot of the kids think that's the only thing I can do in motorsports is be a race car driver. And so I talk about the other careers that allow you to earn a living in racing. And I think that's really, really key. But talking to us, asking questions. I know Megan mentioned that. Don't be afraid to ask the question. There are no stupid questions in what we do. So yeah, just that's the main thing that I would say. Our biggest challenge in Force Indy is finding that talent. And so developing those individuals who might be interested in the sport is something we're very interested in.
Very good point. Coach, we have another follow-up question I have for you, but Megan Crespi with Comerica Bank, our Executive Vice President, Technology and Operations. Megan has to sign off the line here in just a minute. We did want to give the students an opportunity to ask any questions that they may have of Megan. We're going to open it up for all of our guests here in just a minute, but before Megan has a chance to go, if any of the students on the line or anybody from the community groups has a question for Megan, if you would do the raise your hand feature here in the webinar, or you want to type your question into the chat or the Q&A, we'll be happy to get Megan's opinion and her answers before she has to move on. And we also will have Matt Barnard with Comerica Bank, who's able to stay on the line with us and answer any questions specifically as it relates to Comerica. But are there any questions that any of the students might have right now for Megan? Again, very important technology as part of her job. I learned today just how important technology really is in the world that we live in today in terms of my connections. But you know, Megan is the one that supervises all of the technology and operations for Comerica. So very important role in what she does within her field, and also very similar as how it relates to racing. Technology is certainly top of the mind for everything that goes on within racing. So any questions that we might have for Megan? We'll open it up.
Megan, before you sign off, I just wanted to, from the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix presented by Lear, I just wanted to thank you and the entire team at Comerica for everything you do for our event. And really exciting announcement today, the 9th year that you guys have partnered with us in this regard. So certainly appreciate all your support, and look forward to seeing you soon out on Belle Isle.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, we're thrilled. And absolutely, like as I've listened to this esteemed panel today, I'm even more excited. I'll be seeing all of you hopefully out there on the Comerica Bank Free Prix Day, and we are just thrilled to sponsor that for all of these participants for all the reasons that we talked about today. And I'm sorry to have to leave the call early, but you're all in great hands. Really excited for 73 days. Was that what it was, Meryl? 73 days from now. 73 days. Yeah. Let the countdown begin.
Really quick, we have one question. Sees a lot of books on your desk there, and asks what books you're reading.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I have a ton of books, and you can't even see all of them as they line up. I've been reading something really interesting called The Phoenix Project. It has a lot of applicability for anybody who's interested, in particular in STEM. Really talks about how all of kind of projects that you might work on connect to each other and connect to the team and teamwork. So that's one I highly recommend to anybody out there who's interested in the topic.
You never have enough reading, right? You can always learn more, right. And that's one of those things that goes through you through the rest of your life. So that's Megan, right. Thank you very much. We know you have to move on. We appreciate all your support.
Thanks, everybody.
And all your guidance here today. And again, Matt Barnhart with Comerica will be on the line with us as well. Coach, want to get back to you for one quick question. The students got a chance to see the very cool race car that Force Indy and Ernie gets a chance to drive here on race weekend. Really cool design on it, but the number 99 is a very special number as it relates to Force Indy. Can you just share with us and tell the students a little bit of the history behind the number 99? You're on mute there, Coach, by the way. There we go.
More than happy to. When we first got involved in, or I first got involved in motorsports, back when I started NXU Youth Motorsports, I was curious as to the involvement of Blacks in the sport. And I did a lot of personal study. And one of those individuals that I came across was named Dewey Gaston. He's from Texas, lived in California, and started racing when he was 15, 16 years old. And he was not allowed to race because at that time, Blacks and people of African descent were not allowed in the pits. They weren't even allowed in the stadium. So I read about him and his career, and he was one of the most successful what they called at that time outlaws in racing, and there were outlaws because they raced without sanctioned events that were sanctioned by the AAA. And he was a mechanic, he was a racer, and it was extremely successful. So years later, when they, I think it was in the 40s, he started racing, and he got a brand new race car that he purchased from someone, and he put the number 99 on it with the objective of winning. And he finally got a chance to compete in some sanctioned events. But he was a back marker, and the 99 he never put in the winner's circle. And I just thought that would be really cool to pay homage to him and just use that number 99 on our car. So that's what we did. And one other little added fact here is that if you notice, the 99 is surrounded by, our tail back there is red. And we were paying, again, just respect to the Tuskegee Airmen who had the red tails. And so a lot of that just means to myself, to our team, and to Ernie, that there have been many that have gone on before us. And those who have worked really, really hard to do what we do, and I try to keep in mind that we're pretty blessed to be where we are. And just this industry that is so exciting to us all has a long history of Blacks in it. And we want to continue that legacy. So carrying the 99 on our red tail is an important thing for us. So thanks for asking.
It's a great story, and a tribute to you to carry on that legacy. And I'm sure Ernie and the entire Force Indy team will carry that legacy forward. So I want to make sure the students understood the number and the meaning behind that. So thanks for sharing that, Coach. We appreciate it. We'll bring in Michael Montri, president of the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix presented by Lear. Michael, obviously it's important to have community engagement, right, with any event, but for the Detroit Grand Prix, it's so important, in the heart of the Motor City, especially as you look to the give back for this event to Belle Isle over the years. Since the event moved to Belle Isle, it's really contributed to the improvement on the island. Even just since 2007, when the event returned, over $13.5 million between the Grand Prix and its partners has contributed to improvements and all the projects that are going on to make the island a better place. So community is very important. And as we look forward to 2023, when the event returns back to downtown, it's going to become even more important, right? To create more opportunities for people to experience this race and this event. So why is Comerica Bank Free Prix Day such a big part of that and giving back to the community and the opportunities that it provides?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Merrill. We were, the first iteration of the Grand Prix, 1982. They had a free day, and it's been in our DNA as an event ever since. The latest iteration, which has been supported by Comerica, is free on Friday as well, and we'll continue that going forward. But it's such a unique day. If you think of any other sporting event that literally just opens up its gates for one day out of three, it's 33% of our season. If you think of it in that way, like if it was a Tiger game or a Lions game, it's 33% of our season that one day. And to open up 33% of our weekend for free, just I think speaks volumes to what the event means. It really, started the latest iteration of the event started in 2007 at the end of what was the Super Bowl in 2006. So we utilized a lot of those same programs, a lot of those same volunteer groups to start the Grand Prix. And it's a nonprofit. We're not in this to make money. We're in this as a community event to give back to the community. And that's why it's so important, Comerica Free Prix Day, to have everybody out that wants to come on Friday for free, because that's why we're there. We're there to be a positive part of the community.
Michael, we've talked a little bit with Laura and also with Coach Reid and Ernie a little bit about some of the roles that people have within race teams, within racing programs. Beyond that, there's opportunities within events, right? Like the Grand Prix extends, far beyond just the fact that, we're going to be there on race weekend. It's really a year-round project for the Grand Prix. So for the students that are out there and looking for opportunities to maybe get involved in motorsports, what are some of the positions that maybe people aren't thinking about that are associated with the Grand Prix that could be an opportunity down the line?
Yeah, I think you almost have to think about it as a city, right? It's a temporary venue, it's a temporary stadium. And so everything that goes into building that stadium and putting on the event is part of the Grand Prix. So you start on the construction side. We look for people that can drive forklifts every year to help us set those big, cement barriers that line the sides of the racetrack for safety. So we have forklift drivers that we need. We have folks building the grandstands, electricians, plumbers, you name it on the construction side, and we employ it out on the Grand Prix circuit when we build it. When you talk about the actual event, it's a little more traditional as far as the marketing side of it, the public relations side of it, technology. We've talked a lot about technology today. We stand up on Belle Isle a very large Wi-Fi and IT infrastructure just for one weekend. And luckily, we're able to leave a lot of it up for the benefit of the park goers for the rest of the year, but it's really purpose-built for us in the Grand Prix that one weekend. So it really runs the gamut across anything that you can think of. Coach Reid earlier mentioned medical. I mean, we have a wonderful medical team headed up by the DMC in Detroit, and they do a great job, our chief medical director and everybody involved there. So anything you can think of that would be part of the operations of a regular city is really what we do out on Belle Isle every year. But it's only for 59 days. We start to build the circuit, we have the event, and we get it all off the park in 59 days. Yeah, lots of opportunities. Here's another one too that we're starting really to get more into as we get more sophisticated on the technology side. We sell tickets to the event for people to come on Saturday and Sunday, and there's a whole analytical side of ticket sales and how to best market those and when to put them on sale and how to do it. And so it's something that we're really even delving into more and more. Social media, all kinds of stuff.
It really extends far beyond what you see, on the racetrack or even think about. And one of the reasons I asked you the question is I saw something in the chat here from Ladmeen. It looks like to everyone, how does one in the food service industry become a part of this? And Michael, you want to handle that question? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, happy to. I guess that's the one that I missed. I thought I got most of them. You're right. I didn't mention our food service. So we have, close to 100,000 people out on Belle Isle over the course of our 3 days. And as you can imagine, you have to feed those folks. They get hungry, right? So we have concession stands that we run through our vendor, Andiamo. We also have a whole hospitality kitchen that we build out every year. So if you were to walk into an Andiamo restaurant or any restaurant for that matter and walk back into the kitchen and see all the equipment that goes in to cooking that food, well, we build one of those just for temporary services out on Belle Isle every year. The ovens, the how to wash the dishes after you're done, all the pots and pans, the stove tops, microwaves, anything you can imagine that would need to be installed to cook for 100,000 people is out there. So we can put you in touch with our partner in Andiamo. They handle all of our catering, and they are always looking for folks to help them out over a wide range of responsibilities, whether you're a cook, a chef, a hospitality person, meaning, you're dealing with the customers, or you're literally just, running the food back and forth to the different locations on the island, driving a golf cart around to deliver the food or the ice, all kinds of opportunities with our vendor there.
Yeah, I think the main point to take away is there's so many roles that go into this event and to racing in general. There's so many opportunities that are out there for students, for those that are aspiring to be closer to racing and get involved and find their way into the motorsports industry. So we encourage you to really, explore it, think about it, and reach out and make those contacts like a lot of our guests have pointed out today. We want to make sure that we have some time for questions for the students, for any members of our panel today. So again, same advice that I gave when We were seeing if anyone had any questions for Megan. If you want to use the raise your hand feature here in the webinar, we can call on you and have you ask your question through video that way. Or feel free to type your question into the chat for everyone to see. Or you can also use the Q&A function and type your question in that way through Zoom. While we're doing that and getting any questions that we have queued up, we do want to report, and happy to report that from Comerica's numbers here, we have over 200 students that are engaged with us here today. May have even topped that number by now, but some of the schools and community groups that have joined us here today, we want to recognize you, and I hope I don't miss anybody here, but Global Tech Academy, Unistem from Ypsilanti, the Defy program in Unistem, Lincoln King Academy, River Rouge High Schools, Black United Fund, Chandler Park, Destined for Greatness Mentoring and Community Resource, the RTTM Community Center, DAPCEP, Detroit Area Pre-College Engineering Program, Henry Ford Academy, Cornerstone, Renaissance High School, Cass Tech High School. I think I saw a few more that were in here as well. Maybe we've covered most of that. Lincoln King Academy, if we missed you, Harper Woods High School. So again, we appreciate all your support. Flint Southwestern High School, yeah, if we've missed you, please feel free to put it in the chat. Happy to recognize you, because we do appreciate all the time that you've dedicated here today and paying attention and getting an opportunity to engage with our guests, which is a really unique collection of some of the leaders in motorsports and talking about some of the opportunities that are out there within racing. So if there are any other questions, again, please raise your hand or type your question in the chat or Q&A feature, and we're happy to have any of our guests that are still with us get a chance to answer your question.
Merle, I noticed that there was a question in there about someone made the comment that our cars were low profile and really low to the ground, and they are. And the question came up is, how do essentially, how do we keep them from bottoming out? What do they do to the surface of the road to prepare it? So I'm going to turn that over to Michael, because we are in the street.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is one of the very unique things about a temporary road course like we run on Belle Isle, and next year we'll run in downtown Detroit. It's an everyday road, just like you drive your normal car on. And just like a normal road, as most of you know, it gets bumpy, particularly with the harsh winters we have up here. It freezes, it thaws, it freezes, it thaws. So what we do is every year on Belle Isle, we go out there and we do an assessment of what the road is like. And if there's any improvements that need to be done, we do them. And some of the improvements that we've done over the years is we've filled some holes that maybe have developed, some gaps maybe that have developed in between the cement that form a gap, making it a bump. We've filled those, or we've gone as far as even taking out what is essentially a big piece of sandpaper. It's a grinder, and grinding a portion of the road to smooth it out, so you don't get that bottoming out effect, like you mentioned, Coach. But I think, Ernie, it'll be interesting to see what you think when you get out there this year in an open wheel car versus your Trans Am car. Simon Pagenaud always refers to it as it's like he's fighting in a championship fight. He's kind of floating across the bumps on the backstretch. So it'll be interesting to see. But.
Yeah, that was always a big characteristic of Belle Isle that I've known from when I raced there in Trans Am. It almost felt like the Sebring of street courses with how rough it is out there. So it is going to be interesting, and some things for us, for the team, that we work on to keep the car from bottoming. We might run a little bit higher ride height. We might run a little bit stiffer spring rate to try and keep the car from compressing down so much. We'll also run a little bit of preload in the car, just so the springs are a little bit stiffer before they break through, just to try and keep the bottom of the car off the track as much as we can. Because every time it is hitting the ground, it's pretty rough for us as the drivers, but it also takes some weight off the wheels, which hurt us on track, which make us have slower lap times.
Stuff. We have a question through the Q&A from Noah, who asks, how many times do you test in racing, and what are some of the problems you might face when you are testing and encountering those, and how you overcome those when you get to race time? So Coach, And Ernie and Laura, you can probably comment on that to talk about the testing and what you try to look out for when you do test.
For us in Indy Lights, our test schedule is pretty much set by the series. So prior to season, we can test as much as we want. This year, we were didn't get as much testing as we would have liked. I think we had 2 or 3 sessions, but throughout the season, we have a total of, I believe, 6 test days that we can have. They're open tests, meaning where everyone will go out and test, and then you're allowed so many private tests. So I think we'll have 6 or 7 tests that we're able to do this season, during the season. But what problems we face? The number one problem, and Ernie kind of hinted at it, is that it's the setup. We're working to try to manage the way we set up our car so that we can do the best at the track we're going to race. And therein lies the puzzle, the strategy, to try to make sure that what we do with the springs and with the car height and all of that to maximize our ability to go fast. So that's probably the number one thing that most folks in racing set up. So I'm sure it's the same way with you, Laura, in IMSA.
Yeah, our test program is a combination. So we are pushing to do more and more virtually, whether that is done with a lap time simulator, which we would consider more of a static simulator where you're using a computer program to tell you what a change would do to the car, spit out, lap times or how it would affect that, or the driving simulator, which is it's a motion item where the driver will get in, and it's like a video game on steroids in terms of, they have a machine that the driver is sitting in that's going to be just like the cockpit that they're used to, and it will create motion for them as they're driving to feel more like you're in the car. And what we do with these tools are we try to take a large collection of different things we want to try out, and we hone it down to a very small group. So when we do get to physical testing with the car, we can be extremely efficient. And the main reason for this is it's extremely expensive to run the cars. So the more that we can do virtually, the more testing we can do overall, either from time of, shipping a car somewhere and everything, you don't have to worry about that, or just being able to control the budget, which is huge. And so for those who are very interested on the computer side of things, whether it's, writing video games, doing any type of computer science programming, that space, that's probably our biggest area of growth in engineering for racing right now, is bringing in people with the skill sets that can help us bring up our simulation tools so we can get closer and closer to reality, and we can do more and more in the virtual space versus running the car outside of the race weekends. So that's when a lot of young people ask me, well, if I want to be a part of racing and I'm in the technical side, what do? I tell them you do as much as possible to get experience with that type of stuff, because that's where the biggest need is, which we're going to have the most job openings there.
It's a great overview. Interesting, the different philosophies in testing, and I think that varies from racing series to racing series, right? One other question I saw that popped up here, really more for Ernie, I think, is the importance of physical fitness. Drivers are athletes, obviously, right? And very strenuous workout programs. I know it's specifically pretty much tailored for what you do and the conditions you face inside of a race car. So what is your workout, your fitness regimen look like, Ernie?
Yeah, this year Racing Indy Lights has been a big step up in my physical preparation for races. Before that, in the Trans Am series, I would work out every day, but not to the level that I'm doing now. To drive these cars, you're pulling 2 to 3 Gs through the turns, so 2 to 3 times the force of gravity, pulling on your head, pulling on your neck. So it's a lot of neck strength you're doing. I have a whole rig at my house that it's like a helmet you put on, and there's like a band to it, and it puts resistance on your neck, and you fight against it for a little bit, and it puts strain on your neck to simulate what it is in the track. So that's something we do a lot. I pretty much go to the gym every morning for 2 hours, and my workout is a mix of cardio and muscle endurance lifting, just to build up muscle endurance through the course of the race, because you're driving these cars for an hour-long race with no power steering, and it really takes a big toll on your shoulders, on your arms, on your hands, trying to grip the wheel, especially around a bumpy circuit like Belle Isle. The wheel is going to be wanting to rip out of your hand as every turn you go around. So it's just a lot of muscle endurance, strength training that you're doing just to be able to have that level of performance throughout the entire course of a race.
Yeah, you guys are certainly in tremendous shape, world-class athletes for sure. And I think it even extends, beyond just the driver, right? The teams, the crews themselves have to be in terrific shape. And Laura, maybe you can comment on that a little bit. And, when it comes to pit stops, you got to have a top-level performing team and have to be in great shape in order to do that. So there's probably some world-class workout facilities at Pratt & Miller, I would imagine.
Yeah, each team usually has their own gym somewhere, but I think one of the focuses, at least for the Corvette team, has been the physical fitness of the mechanics that are doing the pit stops, and they've seen improvements. They can quantify when they started their program that they're doing to, and what they were achieving in the pits then to what they can do today, and you can watch how it tracks. So, I mean, all of the people that are doing that, and if you try to pick up a wheel and tire, we have ridiculously light wheels and tires in racing because it's, honed to the top technology, but it's still heavy. I mean, rubber is rubber. So to be able to carry that under one arm, and you've got your wheel gun in your other, and you're sprinting around the corner, trying not to trip. I mean, it's a huge athletic event, for the mechanics and for the drivers. So it's pretty neat to see the different skill sets that you're required, in addition to, using your brain and using your body to do what you need to do.
Yeah, not to mention, you're doing all this while in a fire suit that's multi-layer thick. And, we race year long. We race during the summer. It gets pretty hot. We'll race at some places where it's 100 degrees outside. And it doesn't matter how hot it is. We have to wear our fire suits, the mechanics, the crew, everybody has to do it. So it just takes a lot of cardio, I think, and a lot of heat resistance and willpower to be able to push yourself through it.
Yeah, when Earl got out of the O2 after Sebring, the first thing he asked for was a bath of ice. He just wanted to jump in a kiddie pool full of ice. He was so hot. So yeah, it's a lot of temperature management.
That's Earl who won, Earl Bamber, who won 12 Hours of Sebring for Cadillac over the weekend. Yeah, I mean, I think one point I wanted to make on that is that students haven't seen a pit stop up close and in person. It's really something to see. The choreography and the precision that those teams have to carry out, tenths of a second, it can make the difference between winning and losing, and really winning and finishing in 10th place in this sport. So it's really something to behold when you see a pit stop carried out, and a really good one. It's amazing. Takes your breath away. So yeah, fitness is so important, and also being on top of your game and focus as well. We have one other question that we want to get to here from one of the students that about budget and money that it takes to compete in this sport. Anything from F1 all the way down to entry levels of the sport, and it varies quite a bit, as you can imagine. But Coach Reid, as the team principal for Force Indy, you probably have some pretty good insight into that question about budget.
Wow. Well,
yeah. Want to pass that, Buck?
Yeah, I wish I didn't have to take that question, but I take that question every day. Yeah, it's racing is I can't imagine what's more expensive. Maybe yachting. I don't know what's more expensive than motorsports in our world. When you think about the number of people, compare the budget compared to the number of people and the equipment. So I think the main thing is that we have had some wonderful sponsors, just like we talked about Comerica and others who support events. For us and most racing, you have sponsors and people who contribute to that budget. And so we're able to actually continue the race. But yeah, it's an escalating cost. I mean, if you stop and think about the car alone for us, our cars is probably all put together and said and done. It's $300,000-$400,000 just for a car before we even do anything with it and bring on a driver. So yeah, budgets are pretty high, but it's what we do and it's what we have to manage every day. So trying to be, I think Laura was talking about the whole idea of virtual testing. which we have done a little bit. We don't have a lot of sophisticated equipment so that we can in turn garner the information we need to make it worthwhile. But I can see how that would, keep the budget down. But yeah, I'm not sure what they were asking about budget, but yeah, we have one, and it's pretty expensive. But we're allowed to continue based on support from the fans, from people who go to races, to these wonderful sponsors who allow these events to go on.
Yeah, Coach, I think it was really more focused on, what is the budget, and as you answered it, it's very, very different levels depending on what the series you're competing in. So, and you're right, sponsorship is so essential to this sport, and why we make sure that we want to make sure that we deliver for our sponsors that want to support it, because it is so important to what we do. So we wanted to wrap up with the students. We appreciate everyone's time. We're going to continue with a couple questions from the media that have been patiently waiting on the call for our panelists, but all the students, again, over 200 of them who have been out today. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. It's been very educational and eye-opening, I think, for all of us, and we certainly appreciate your patience and your interest in motorsports, and we really hope that we see all of you on Comerica Bank Free Prix Day on Belle Isle at the Grand Prix, June 3rd, Friday, June 3rd. Come on out. It's free of charge, thanks to Comerica, and we encourage you to continue to pursue interest in motorsports and talk to as many people as you can, learn as much as you can about this sport, because it is a great sport and there's plenty of opportunities, and we want to make sure that everyone knows that it's a very welcoming and inclusive sport as well. So thank you again for your participation today. We'll wrap it up with the students and move along to any members of the media that might have any questions for our panel. Thank you, students, and thank you very much to Comerica Bank for making this possible today with all the students as well. We'll transition here quickly.
Meryl, I have a 2:30 commitment, so unfortunately I cannot stay. If media has any questions for us, they should go through Ryan Smith or David Lewandowski, who takes care of Corvette and Cadillac, and they can always get answers as needed.
Absolutely. Thanks, Laura. We appreciate it. You can always reach out to me and I can pass you on to the right people too. Any questions for you. Laura, thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate your support. And your
good to see you, Ryan. Good to see you again, Ernie and Mike.
Yes, see you guys in a few months.
So we'll open it up. Any media, again, thank you very much for your patience. Wanted to make sure that we got the opportunity for students to ask any questions of our panelists here today. So if you are still on the line, you have a question as a media member, same advice goes for you guys. If you want to use the raise your hand feature, we'll recognize you. And if there's any questions through the Q&A or the chat and you want to type it in, feel free. I understand there is a David Malsher from motorsport.com who is on the line with us. David, did you have a question? We got David there. Give us 1 second here. I think he's popping up now.
Yeah,
there he is. Hey, David, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. I just typed it into the thing, but yeah, we've seen men of color, thanks to the efforts of people like Reid and also Penske Entertainment, and we've seen women get involved in motorsport as well. Women of color are massively underrepresented at the moment, and I wondered if Rod could perhaps give us some insight as to what we need to do to appeal to what I would say is a probably huge demographic in terms of getting we see these people staffing our events, but how do we get women of color involved to being engineers and crew members or even driving? Is there something that we're really not doing at the moment?
Well, let me try to give you a really, short answer here. I am working with Lynn St. James. She has a group called Women with Drive, and we meet on a regular basis. And one of the topics we've talked about is women of color in motorsports. I think that it starts with some of the basic things that I was talking about, what we do in NXG, and then we continue to enforce Indy, and that is to make sure that we reach out and talk to those women who might be interested in motorsports or even just curious, and say there's a place for you, and then help develop that curiosity The other thing, and this is something that is a little tougher thing to work on, and that is putting money behind, scholarships, things like that. And we started at NXG 2 scholarships this year, and I gave a scholarship to a young African-American girl who's going to Purdue University, specifically in that area that Michael talked about, and that is in the in the IT world. May even help her get an internship in timing and scoring or something like that at INDYCAR. But I think we just have to be aware that most women, especially women of color, they're probably the farthest away from the sport, perhaps from just exposure. So that, we just have to keep going down that path when we see folks at the race and say, is this something you might be interested in, and encourage and invite them to come out. Same thing, and I'll just say this quickly about the PR area. We happen to have African-American female-owned PR firm for Force Indy. That was important to us to be able to reach out and say, okay, and when we started, they knew very, very, very little about motorsports. And now I would say I'd put them up against anyone who understands the sport in terms of PR. So that exposure, that access is going to happen. I'm also working with a young lady who's interested in racing, but we've just got to find more dollars, more scholarships to put behind those folks.
Right. And do you, in terms of numbers that attend your NXG schools, karting schools, I mean, what's the proportion boys to girls?
Well, it's amazing. Last year, and this is thanks to Detroit, we had 40% female participation, and that was up from 26% the year before. And it's just that exposure. And I'll give another shout out to Girls STEM that is there in Detroit. We have a similar program here that we've reached out to say these young ladies might be interested. And once we can deal with them getting their hair in the helmet, we're in good shape.
All right, thank you very much. See you soon. Thanks, Rod.
Thank you, David. We appreciate your patience. Any other questions from the media that we may have missed here? I think we have one here from Danny Bridges, who for Coach Danny asked you to talk a little bit about the upcoming Indy Lights race at Barber. After testing there, how comfortable are you that you can carry forward the momentum that you built in St. Pete, where you finished strong after some difficulties in qualifying?
Yeah. Danny, thanks. Good question. And also let Ernie kind of chime in on some of this. We did have one test at Barber. We're going to be there, and I think it's the last weekend in April. And we've gone to race at a really, really beautiful track. We hope that we can take the information that we learned during the test, which was quite some time ago, and relate that to what Ernie was able to do at St. Pete. We are going to go there and test one more time, I think on April the 18th. But we're confident that we're learning and we're going to use what we learn. We've got a lot more information about Barber now than we have with St. Pete. So if we can improve on what we did, a lot of folks ask me, what's your goal? Where are you going to finish? And I think Ernie will attest to the fact that we said, first of all, let's finish the race. Just finish. If we can finish the race, we'll worry about the other stuff. And he's such a good racer that if we can stay in the race, I think we can do all right. Ernie, any comments on that?
Yeah. Going into Barber, it's a different challenge than St. Pete. Totally different way you approach that track. It's very high speed. A lot of elevation changes. You have to rely on the downforce a lot around that place and have a lot of trust in the car. We did do a test at Barber, but it was several months ago. We've been on track several times since then at other places. So you kind of forget all the little details about the time that you tested there before. So luckily we have a test coming up. Like Mr. Reid had said,
So I'm excited for that to be able to get on track and kind of get a refresher, and then now having more experience under my belt after doing a race at St. Pete, knowing more what I need behind the wheel in the car, and what we need to do to be able to be fast on track. I think it'll improve the testing that we get. And, going into Barber, I think it's going to be something similar to St. Pete. Our first goal is to go out there and finish the race. But I think, we're all pretty happy with the results at St. Pete, to start in 14th and to finish in 7th out there, kind of race our way up and through, was really awesome. So if we can, continue to make steady improvement every event we go to, and start to crack into that top 5 and get closer to the front, then I think, it'll be awesome. So that's the goal. We just have to put in the work to get there.
We wish you the best of luck. Coach Reid and Ernie Francis Jr., all of our panelists today, thank you so much for your time and your insight and dedicating your time today. And all the students that were part of our call, hope you enjoyed it. For the media that was on the line, thank you very much for your patience. Sorry about the connectivity issues that we faced early on, but I appreciate everyone and hanging in there, and some great content. And we really look forward to having everyone and trying to host everyone on Belle Isle on Friday, June 3rd for Comerica Bank Free Prix Day. It's going to be a great opportunity, great way to start the weekend at the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix presented by Lear. We know that NXG is going to be here in the meantime, and we'll be looking forward to some of those announcements. We'll be rooting for Force Indy and keeping an eye on everyone as we get closer to race weekend here in Detroit. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you to Comerica. I also want to recognize Matt Barnhart and Linda with Comerica for their help with organizing today's event as well, and Michael Smith with NXG for his outreach here in Detroit. Tracy Royal, as you kind of mentioned, Rod Reid for public relations for Force Indy does a great job there. So we look forward to having all this support team with us on Belle Isle as we celebrate the Grand Prix here in the Motor City, the final event on Belle Isle. But thank you very much. There is a recording of today's engagement that we will be making public. So if anyone wants a copy of that, please reach out and let us know. But we look forward to seeing everybody in 73 days on Belle Isle. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.